Welcome to Crunching Tackles, where we break down the hardest hitting social issues in sports. On today's show, England win the most hyped game of the World Cup so far, and the semifinals are set. We break it all down this week on the podcast. My name is Chad Wiley, and with me, as always, he might join Neymar at the World Series of Poker. It's John Nekrasov.
Oh, I certainly hope. I don't want to be associated with Neymar in any way. Where are you
Are
getting
you
this
aware
information
that
from?
Are you aware that Neymar signed up for the World Series of Poker 4 days after going out of the tournament?
It just goes to show how seriously he took this competition, as evidenced by his penalty shenanigans at the end of that game against Norway.
He's literally I guess he obviously was just waiting to see if he went out of the tournament. But then as soon as he went out, he signed up and is competing. And I don't know if he's any good, but that's what he's doing.
I hate to be just starting this show with engagement farming, but we already talked about Neymar and Ronaldo being retired and rooting their legacies last week, and how do they keep hitting new lows? I don't understand.
Well, I'm now convinced that Ronaldo is not retiring, given...
I don't know. There's no way he is.
I think because, and this is a good piece of news, but Portugal fired their manager, Roberto Martinez, and they hired a manager, is it Jorge Jesus? Who
I
believe is his name, yeah. who was Ronaldo's manager for his Saudi Arabian club, Al Nassr, who is now the Portugal manager. And because Portugal are joint hosts in the 2030 World Cup, I now firmly believe that Ronaldo will try to play in the 2030 World Cup.
He's going to be 45.
He's going to try. He's going to pull a Tom Brady.
That's Tom Brady ages.
Yeah.
But in soccer, you can't do that.
He's going to
try. He couldn't do this tournament.
I'm just telling. We know that, but he doesn't know that. He still believes that he. Do you want to talk about his Instagram as well and what he did? Do you want to talk about this at all?
I don't know if I'm familiar with.
Well, just how he started posting about the Euros, the 2016 Euros, and how he's acting like winning the 2016 Euros was just as important as winning the World Cup. Now that he knows definitively that he will never win a World Cup, and he's trying to paint his legacy, whitewash his legacy.
I have never seen someone tank their legacy in real time this badly since Bill Belichick signed for University of North Carolina.
Yeah, that's a good comp.
The two of them together are just conspiring to destroy. Because Ronaldo, it's so easy to forget. I feel like I forget that for some time it was a real 50-50 debate. Was Messi or Ronaldo the player with the better legacy?
I think that was Ronaldo, true until 4 years ago.
I think if he had retired at that point, it honestly would have been fine. Messi would have won the World Cup.
Had the World Cup.
Right, which is different. But I feel like Ronaldo has taken his stock lower than where it was when he left Europe. That's what's shocking to me.
Yeah. I think it's right. I think it's true.
It's tough.
Yeah. I don't know why we're starting this podcast with Ronaldo when we have some amazing soccer to talk about. But, I mean... It's fair. It's fair. I think he after going out of the tournament has done a lot to try to keep himself in the narrative with his posts.
Right.
And I find that disappointing and entirely unsurprising. You called him the most selfish athlete you've ever seen last week. So,
and I stand by it. I just can't believe he's the most popular person in the world. Have we talked about this? That he's the most followed person on Instagram? That's just crazy to me. And he just keeps engagement farming while doing nothing for his country.
Lots of bots nowadays.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about real soccer?
Bots? Yeah, let's do it. We are podcasting a little bit early, actually. We're recording on Sunday because we are actually in between the quarterfinals and the semifinals. And this is the last time we will podcast before the World Cup final. And so we wanted to come in here at a good break, talk about what we just saw, preview the semifinals and the final, and then just set everyone up for an awesome Sunday next week that will be starting, as we're recording this, almost exactly 1 week from now, almost to the minute. And so we're really looking forward to the World Cup final here next week. But John, to start out, we had four interesting games. Not all were, I wouldn't say they were all good games, and you certainly would not say they were all good games, but four interesting games. And like I said in the intro, I think the most anticipated game of the entire World Cup so far was England and Norway. I think that narrowly beats, I think the group stage game between France and Norway was extremely well anticipated. And I think also the England-Mexico game was had a lot of hype going into it. But I think that England-Norway might take the cake. And so, my question is, John, did the game live up to the hype? And what are your takeaways from England's victory over Norway?
I think it absolutely did live up to the hype. And I think it's interesting. England is obviously, it's kind of a given, but England is attracting eyeballs. It attracts attention. The just a quick side note that I don't think we talked about last week, the viewership numbers for the World Cup have been like nothing we've ever seen in the U.S. And England, Mexico, USA, Belgium had a lot of views, but England,
USA
Mexico,
Belgium did more views than
go ahead.
any sporting event this century that is not the NFL. More than any
Yes,
college football game, any NFL game, any NBA, not any NBA game, any NHL game. The only things that have done better are like primetime NFL games this century.
yeah. And England, Mexico did even better. It had almost
Mm-hmm.
50 million views across all platforms in the US specifically,
Yeah.
which obviously Mexico attracts eyeballs, England attracts eyeballs. That, again, is basically AFC, NFC championship level views, which is astonishing. Like, soccer is really growing in this country in a new way. So that was just cool. I don't think we talked about that, so I wanted to shout that out. But England, Norway, I think, was an even more anticipated matchup because Norway really has been as much as a country can be the star of a World Cup, Norway has been the star of the World Cup. And Erling Haaland specifically, obviously, is like the most popular person of this entire tournament. Like he has reached a new level of fame outside of the sports world, where, all kinds of people that I know that, are really not aware of the soccer verse, on any normal week know who Erling Haaland is, and that's been a huge factor. Obviously, the Norwegian fans have been a huge factor in American society at large. We're like, literally, they're like, they come up at work, they come up, everywhere you turn on social media. And then you have England, which is one of, the most storied countries in all of soccer, that obviously has been a regular feature of international tournaments over the last decade in terms of going deep, since Gareth Southgate took over in 2018. So there's so many storylines to get to leading up to this game, which I've dubbed as the second Battle of Stamford Bridge. After the first one in 1066, which the Norwegians invaded England and were repelled by Harold Godwinson,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, Harold Godwinson then marched south to fight against the Normans at the infamous Battle of Hastings and lost to the invading Frenchmen. I'm certainly hoping, that outcome does not happen at the second Battle of Hastings, if England and France make the final, but it does seem like the most likely outcome currently. That's by the by. There's so much to get to in this game, but I do think, like, you're exactly right. The lead up to this game and the kind of underachieving heavyweight status of England versus the exciting, not even like sort of underdog, but also like tournament darling status of Norway really fed into this being, for sure, up to this point in the semifinals that have been set, the most anticipated game of this tournament.
No one, and that includes any player of the U.S. men's national team, has developed a bigger stardom in America than Erling Haaland.
That's
And
just true.
so, even though Norway were, I think, significant underdogs going into the game, I think the game turned out kind of how we thought that it would. I do want to talk about Haaland because I think he did not live up to the billing, and I think a lot of that
No,
was related
he did
to
not.
the extreme weather conditions that were happening in Miami. But like, I wanted to talk about this, John. Like I feel like the two biggest winners of the World Cup are Erling Haaland and his spiritual predecessor Zlatan Ibrahimovic, as like the
Yes.
two biggest who have made like the biggest imprint on American culture. And I feel like for Haaland, what he's done is so impressive to, I mean, really like be a viral social media person as he's experiencing, American culture, and also score at the rate that he did and take a country that quite frankly had no business being in the quarterfinals to the World Cup quarterfinals. Like, I think it's really unfair to say that the best players in the world have to win a World Cup because it's so contingent on, what country you're from. And so, like, someone like Luka Modric, who is one of the best players in the world, he overachieved with Croatia, while someone like Cristiano Ronaldo underachieved with Portugal because those countries are not
Absolutely.
the same in terms of talent. Norway is overachieving with Holland and with Martin Odegaard. And, I don't know if they could ever win a World Cup. It would be, I think, very unlikely if they did. But without winning the World Cup, he did just about as much for his legacy as anyone possibly could. But, John, as we get into the game, you know who I think maybe has an even greater legacy or could have a greater legacy? And that is Jude Bellingham,
Yep.
who former teammate of Erling Haaland at Borussia Dortmund when they were teenagers. Jude Bellingham is England's best player. And that includes Arsenal, linchpin Declan Rice, and that includes Sir Harry Kane, the face of Team England. But the guy who makes it happen, the man who is the catalyst and the goal scorer for this team is Jude Bellingham. He's 23 years old and he is an absolute game changer. Like I think I mentioned in the last podcast that he's having the World Cup that we thought that this was the Jude Bellingham we would see for at Real Madrid. And we haven't seen it consistently yet. We saw maybe some flashes of this, but what he's put together consistently every single game of this World Cup has just been absolutely spectacular.
It really has. It's been incredible. I would like to, just to temper this a little bit. I agree Jude is amazing. Harry Kane has scored, I believe, I'm looking at it right now. Across this last season, he has scored 79 goals in the 2025-26 season, which is a lot of goals. So, I do think Harry Kane has a shout for being in there as well. But what I will say is Jude Bellingham has 4 goals in the last 2 knockout rounds for England. Mm-hmm. And I think what Bellingham is doing, one, he is living up to the pressure of this moment in a way that is absolutely crucial. Kane and Bellingham have scored all of England's goals this tournament.
Yeah.
Like they are showing up big time. And Bellingham in particular has this ability to take the ball and carry it upfield. And, he's both a really intense defender, but he's just a phenomenal box-to-box midfielder. He will power up the field. He carries the ball. He passes the ball. He has the skill to beat multiple players on the dribble as well, which, Kane doesn't really have that to the same extent. And he just has this knack for showing up in the box at the exact right time. And I think that in a tournament like this, where you have tired legs, where you have teams that are playing super deep, like Norway was very deep against England a lot of this game. And Bellingham just is able to seize games like this by the scruff of the neck and just power forward in a way that, like, in this kind of tournament, it suits him perfectly. I would, like you said, I would like to see him do this more consistently, just in general at the club level. But I think at the international level, it is set up perfectly for him to really establish his legacy as like an England great already. Like we texted back and forth about this, so I'm not going to take your quote, but like if England win this World Cup, Jude Bellingham to me should be knighted immediately.
You said he should be knighted. I said he should just become the King of England.
yeah. I think you'd have a legitimate case. For starting a war of succession.
Let's talk about the game. So England beat Norway 2-1 in extra time. Norway scored the opening goal on an amazing, was it a shot? Was it a cross? I'm not entirely sure. I think it was a cross.
I'm still not convinced. Yeah.
It was a cross that went into the goal and like smashed off the post and went in. It was an amazing goal. And then Jude Bellingham equalized on a controversial goal that we'll get to. But it was an amazing individual effort by Jude to get the ball on the edge of the box, dribble around 3 Norwegian players, and then slot a great goal home on his left foot. And then the winner that Jude Bellingham scored was just like the classic poacher's goal, where the keeper makes a mistake and spills the ball when he should have caught it. And the first person to react was Bellingham, and he puts it into an open net. So all that to say, I think that we're gonna talk a little bit more about England when we preview their semifinal against Argentina. Spoiler alert: Argentina also won. We'll get there. But I would just like to talk say like this game. Clearly, England were the better team than Norway.
Yeah,
and I want to talk about specifically why, and I think that's because of the weather. In fact, there were actual conversations about possibly delaying the game because it was a 5 p.m. kickoff in Miami, and the temperature was like so hot that maybe it was like going to be hotter than like the record temperature of either of these countries had ever experienced, Norway or England. And I think you could see it have a real impact on some of the players who were playing. Specifically, Declan Rice, who might have had another illness as well, or like something else
Mm-hmm.
going on, but
He
came
did.
off at
Yeah.
halftime. And then Haaland, who played the full 90 plus the first half of extra time, but was not moving at
Mm-mm.
all like you would expect him. He was basically, unless he thought that he was like about to score, he was basically standing still the entire game. And
Right.
it was unusual, and it was not what you expect from someone like Haaland. It's not how he's looked the rest of this tournament. And I just have to wonder, a guy of this size who has played the amount of minutes that he's played this season, if this weather just got to him in a really, really, really tough way. And so, the game was billed as this showdown, the shootout between Harry Kane and Erling Haaland, and neither of them score. And Haaland especially never even looked like he was threatening to score necessarily.
No, I mean there was that
Obviously,
one header that he had, but other than that,
right. Every other player had to deal with the heat too. So it's not an excuse, but I think someone like Haaland with his body type and his frame and the way he plays, I could see that the heat being I think particularly impactful on him.
right. But I do think, to be honest, like regardless of that, these players have all, the English players also are not used to that, you know, temperament either. And I do think that like you've had the time almost a month now to acclimate to these intense temperatures.
Mhm.
Um, it hasn't been, you can attest that it hasn't been necessarily cold in North Carolina, where both you live and Erling Haaland's been training. So, I agree that it matters, but also like, he didn't, the limitations of Erling Haaland compared to someone like Lionel Messi is that Erling Haaland does need, and this is true for Manchester City as well. Erling Haaland needs to get the ball. And when you get those moments, maybe he only needs 2 moments a game where he really gets a good look and scores. But if those moments don't happen, then he does just kind of look like he's out on an island by himself. Like he had in 106 minutes that he played, he had 21 touches of the ball. For comparison, Nani Madueke, who was hooked at halftime for England, had 28 touches. Like he
How
just
many?
he didn't
I mean,
he didn't get the ball.
none of Madueke's touches were positive, but at least he touched
But like
he
I'm
touched
saying,
the
like
ball.
that just means that you're not in the game.
Right.
You're waiting for the opportunity, and he
Totally.
he doesn't like Haaland doesn't get the ball at the halfway line like
Yeah.
Harry Kane if he's not able to get involved and drop in and play some passes and like try to orchestrate the game around him. Like he really does need to be that outlet guy for Norway, and I think to England's credit, you know as we start talking about like what does this game mean, to England's credit, I have often looked at this English team and said like I don't know that they have what it takes to defensively win this tournament. And I even said that at times watching the game early on yesterday, and they continue to prove me wrong, is what I will say. Like this team has dug deep. They, nullified a very intense Mexican team in the Azteca, last week, which was an unbelievably intense battle. It was one that, that Mexico has basically never lost. I think has officially never lost in the World Cup in that stadium. They almost never lose competitive matches there. And England survived the onslaught for, I think it was like 30 minutes of just defending their own box over and over and over and over and over again. And then in this game, I mean, they weren't dug in as much, but they had some intense defensive efforts throughout extra time and the end of regular time. And they also they were able to nullify the threats that Norway has posed to teams like Brazil that have been, genuinely a threat. Norway scored multiple goals against France in the group stages with Haaland off the field. So this is not a team that is by any means just limited to Erling Haaland.
Yeah.
And England both limited him to basically no looks at all and also weathered the rest of the onslaught. And Norway ultimately kind of scored off a pretty fluky, amazing, but kind of a fluky goal. So as I look ahead toward what the semifinal and the potential final could be, like, England are not the most talented team in this tournament, but there is a determination to this team that matters in the later stages of a World Cup. And I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I agree. We can't ignore the defining scandal of this game, which will shock no one to know that this was a VAR related scandal. And that is the question, John, of should Norway have won this game 1-0 in regulation time? Because England's goal, their equalizer to make it 1-1 that Jude Bellingham scored, was a goal. It came quickly off of a goal kick from Norway from Nyland, the keeper, and as he is kicking the ball, it to my eyes and to most of like the ball tracking that I've seen, very clearly touches the camera cable for like that sky camera that kind of dangles over the field, and it drops at a different angle than it should have under the normal laws of physics, directly into the path of Elliot Anderson, who quickly moves the ball upfield to Anthony Gordon, who slots it into Bellingham, who scores. I mean, we're talking maybe within 10 seconds of the ball allegedly hitting this cable, England have scored. And if, as they discussed at halftime, John, on Fox, if that was true, then the ball should have been the play should have been blown dead, and it should have been a drop ball.
Right.
And that goal should not have stood. We talked last week about an England goal that was, or I'm sorry, an Egypt goal that was disallowed maybe 20 or 30 seconds due to a foul that took place 20 or 30 seconds before the goal was scored, and VAR went back to that foul and overturned the goal. And in this case, VAR does not even look at this, even though immediately the entire Norway bench and many of the Norway players on the field are noticing that something has happened, that the ball has hit an object, and that it was, that this goal should not have stood. And FIFA have come out with their now infamous line graph, heartbeat graph, that has, according to them, determined that the ball did not make contact with a cable. The eyeballs of almost every person and the laws of physics when they're drawing the path of the ball seem to disagree with FIFA's phantom heartbeat sensor. Um, it's been interesting how many news organizations have reported like that this with certainty that they like almost everyone seems to believe that this did happen, including some England players like Gary Neville or Gary Lineker. I don't remember which one, but one of them said that, I think Gary Lineker, who said that he thought that it touched as well. So what do you make of this, John? Is this much ado about nothing? Are people freaking out because of past VAR incidents, or is there some merit here?
Yeah, I think it's easy to look at something like this is like a little bit of a freak accident if it did happen. Um, I think it's easy to take a situation like this where it's possible, but not, we can't really confirm what exactly happened. Like when I watched the play, I didn't notice anything strange when it happened in real time. And I just thought that the goalkeeper had kind of just had a weak goal kick. And then like when you watch the very like fuzzy replays, it does seem like it's possible that the trajectory is altered. But I also don't like, I think it's a crucial moment, but it's early enough in the game that, when I watch how the game played out, I don't look at that goal that happened and say, if this goal is ruled out, England don't score later in the game. Like it's not a last second kind of situation where like Norway is crushed by this completely unjust situation. Like, first of all, the Norwegian players had time to respond. Obviously, the ball does go right to Elliot Anderson, but like there's a ton of individual brilliance by the British players or the English players, excuse me, that happened to create the goal for Jude Bellingham, including his own.
But wasn't there a ton of individual brilliance in the Egypt game that that the Argentinian players would have had enough time to react to in the lead up to that goal. Like just because players have to do things in between the incident and the goal doesn't mean that there wasn't an incident. Like I could say
I'm just
all
saying
the
it's
same things
unprovable.
about Egypt.
I'm just saying it's completely unprovable, right? The Egypt incident, you see it happen on the camera, right? In this instance, according to FIFA's technology, now we can again have the conversation, is their technology real? If we don't believe it's real, and that's a whole nother problem, right? But FIFA has produced the records and at least according to them. So like the question
Allegedly.
is FIFA lying? You know, like to me, if we're going to make that claim, that's a much bigger claim than just asking like, did the incident happen?
No, I understand. I'm just saying if the incident happened, then just because England had to then go on and do some skill before they scored is not a relevant factor, just like it wasn't
But
in the Egypt game.
but what I'm saying is like it's not particularly controversial to me in that I don't think it defines the story of the game because there are other opportunities for players to score throughout that, almost 50 minutes of gameplay after the fact. The incident itself is not fully verifiable, and it's not like, I guess what I'm saying is it's not like an England player predicts that that's going to happen and then it happens and then they score. Like everyone reacts to the ball kind of dropping in real time. 100% by the letter of the law. If the ball made contact with the wire, it should have been a drop ball. But given the evidence we have, I don't feel like from what I've seen, I don't feel like it's provable unless FIFA's technology says otherwise and they hid it from us. I don't think it's provable that the incident actually happened. That's how I feel currently.
So
What do you think?
when you look at the pictures that have drawn the trajectory of the ball and like the expected trajectory and then the deviated trajectory, that's not convincing. It's you haven't seen convincing proof that that ball does take a touch and dives
Mm-mm.
prematurely than what the laws of physics would say a ball should do.
I don't think so. Not from what I saw. Like watching it in real time multiple times. And maybe I'm just blind maybe I haven't looked at the right replays. But at this current moment, I am not confident that it didn't touch the wire, but I'm also not confident that it did. And technically, right, that's what FIFA's ball sensor is for. So the question is did the ball sensor not work? Or did it work and the ball didn't touch the wire, or did it work and FIFA hid the evidence? Like those are
Right.
the
Right.
scenarios that are
Did it
available
because
for us.
FIFA didn't release it till after the game. So like in theory they could have put any graph that they wanted to superposed onto the video. I'm not accusing
Sure.
them of that, but like I wouldn't put it past them.
I'm
Here's
just
the
saying like
issue,
that's a
John.
huge allegation to make that like if
I
we want
agree.
to go
It
that
would
far, that's fine. But
yeah.
like
No, I
I
don't.
don't
I
think that
don't.
something that minuscule, if FIFA's technology, if what they gave us is accurate and they really did not register a contact, then the only thing that we can be alleging if the technology works is that FIFA is covering up a controversy so that England move on to the semifinals, which seems to me unlikely given FIFA's relationship to the English FA personally.
No, I think it's more likely that this fringe and experimental technology is not reliable and
Right,
FIFA
which
is
is
relying
possible.
on it as if it's a
Yeah,
certainty. But I
right.
think the issue to me is like, and I think you're seeing this online, which is like, if this was the first or second VAR controversy of this World Cup, maybe there'd be a little bit more grace. But people, including me, and I talked to you about this last night, like, I am just conditioned now to not trust or believe in VAR at any point because of
It's
this
just
World
like
Cup.
Watergate.
Just because it's
Yeah,
been a complete disaster. And we've seen so many incidents now that have been disastrously bad. And so, like, there is just no goodwill and no grace being given to VAR at this point by any soccer fan. And so, when you
right.
see something, even if it's not like you're right, like I cannot 100% prove you that it did. I believe it did, but I don't know for sure. But people don't trust VAR. They don't believe that it's being used reliably, and they don't believe that it's being applied fairly. And they believe that FIFA might be putting their fingers on the scales to suit the teams that they want to see go far in this tournament. And all of those things create this massive culture of distrust where now every single incident is under extreme scrutiny because people are looking for things to go wrong because so many
Right.
things have gone wrong.
Which I think is exactly right. I think FIFA, VAR is controversial outside the World Cup, but FIFA in particular has mishandled, the application of VAR constantly throughout this tournament. That being said, so Erling Haaland talked after the game about some of the refereeing controversies. Like there were a few things that happened, as there always are in games of this magnitude. And Haaland basically said, you know, he obviously was disappointed in the result, and he was like, decisions went against us. That's football ultimately. And I thought he provided some fair and interesting thoughts that I don't like it when big teams are advantaged by VAR decisions. But what he said, he was like, at Manchester City, I received the benefit of the doubt a lot, um, with referees, with video assistant referees, and I think he's right, obviously. And it's interesting that he's like clear eyed enough to say that in the aftermath of a game like this. A lot of it does come down to like, if your team is the protagonist of a game and you have the ball in dangerous areas, it is more likely that you will end up in situations where you give the referee the ability to give you the benefit of the doubt and make decisions for you. Um, and that doesn't mean that they make the right call all the time. Obviously, Manchester City refereeing enrages me on a weekly basis in the Premier League. And the same thing has happened in this World Cup constantly. But I think it's true that when a team has a lot of clout to it, that weighs in the referees' minds, and when teams are aggressive and puts themselves in aggressive situations, that also I think does just end up putting them more likely to receive the benefit of the doubt in refereeing decisions. So I thought that was ultimately a pretty fair assessment of the game. I think that there were a few controversial incidents other than that goal, but to me, like, even if that goal gets chalked off, England was the better team, and I would expect them to score in regular time, and I would still expect them to win that game. I think that's ultimately where I land, and so like, I I don't, I don't like the feeling of games, ending up with unjust decisions. Obviously, which is, we'll get to Argentina, but I do think like this game in particular was not, in my mind, defined by those decisions so much as just the intensity of the battle that both these teams put out in the field. Like I think it's a distraction from how good this game was.
I agree with you about like the flow of the game and the amount of time left. Like I'm not saying that if this had happened, Norway would have won 1-0. I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah.
What I would say before we just and my last thought is that I think it's disappointing to see the FIFA referees and VAR go back 30 seconds in a game to overturn a goal for Egypt and then not even look at this incident that happened no more than 10 seconds before the goal was scored, just even when the Norwegian coaches and players were asking for it in the moment. Like they're just obviously in hindsight, like, FIFA releases a statement, but the fact that they wouldn't even look at it in the moment, I just find incredibly disappointing given that they are willing to go back and overturn goals for other reasons and for things that happened longer in time than this incident.
Yeah, which is fair. I mean, ultimately the question is, do you trust FIFA's ball technology or not? To me, like, I think it's that simple.
So far, no. It's a no from me.
Right. I mean, we'll find out, obviously. Like,
Yeah.
I think that this is going to end up, we've had two really weird edge cases that have involved, the ball sensor technology. And I don't know that in a post VAR age, we would have just moved on.
Yeah.
Right. And so in this
Yeah.
circumstance, we have maybe the ability to review it, but it's still inconclusive. And at that point, it's just kind of like, okay, like it is a controversy, but also like, how much would they even be able to review the footage if they don't have a ball sensor that's accurate? I don't know that they would have accurate footage to even review, you know, the ball hitting the camera unless the ball actually hit the camera straight in the face. Like
Right.
I think
Right.
that's the challenge. Like none of the
And
angles I have seen have conclusively told me anything. So
By the way, that'd be fine with me if we got rid of VAR and
Right.
we did not overturn the Egypt goal and we did not overturn the England goal. That would be morally consistent to me. But
Right.
they can look, and in one instance they did, and in one instance they didn't, and that is not fair.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
how I feel.
yeah, we can
We don't have to belabor it.
relitigate it
Yeah, yeah,
over and over again, but
yeah.
yeah.
England advanced, John. Before we get off this game, a really weird post-game moment between England head coach Thomas Tuchel and star player Jude Bellingham. That was just, I think, an unusual thing to see at this stage of a major tournament.
It was odd. So Tuchel comes in and basically says that he thought that his team had monster mentalities and were really intense players and got the job done, but that their technical ability was poor. Basically, is what he said. He said
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they played terribly the entire game and got lucky that they won. And Jude Bellingham did not take kindly to this.
No, Bellingham was like basically said, he said, whatever. Maybe the manager doesn't understand what it's like to play in this environment against this team, which is just like a fairly like specific and sharp criticism to be laying
Yeah,
at your manager in the aftermath of a win and advancing to a World Cup semifinal. Like, I don't think that the England locker room is about to like fall apart or anything, but it was just like a weird and kind of like set a weird tone to what should have otherwise been a very celebratory moment for both the team and the country.
yeah, it was super odd. We don't have to spend too much time on this because we got stuff to get to. But ultimately, here's the thing. My cards have been on the table. I would love England to win this World Cup. If England are going to actually get over the hump after, 60 years since 1966 for the first time, England are going to have to be considerably better than they've been for this entire tournament. That's just an objective fact.
Yeah.
Thomas Tuchel knows that they will play Argentina. At the time, he didn't exactly know, but he assumed that they would play Argentina in the semifinal and then probably France or Spain, who beat them in the Euro final in 2024. All three of those teams have won more than England, have better players than England in certain categories, and will really be a sterner test for England than anyone they face this tournament. And I think Tuchel, wanted to get out there and lay down a challenge for his players to say, like, you think that you've really achieved something. You've not beaten a single truly serious team in this tournament yet. And I think Jude Bellingham did not appreciate that. But I think he's right, to be honest.
I mean, they can both be right, right? Like
Yeah, I
it
think
is
they
the
both are. Yeah.
job of the coach to be looking at the tactics, and it is the job of the player to go out there and be a warrior. And they
Right.
both did their jobs.
Right.
So
It is really funny.
yes, yeah. To me, it's a non-issue. It's just strange that it happened, I guess.
I do think that it's like, I don't know that saying that on live TV in Tuchel's situation is like the best way to
No,
motivate your
definitely not.
players necessarily.
Definitely not.
But
No.
I think that he wants them to recognize in the public eye that they will deal with more pressure than they've ever dealt in their careers in this next game.
Interesting that you think
And
that.
that's fine.
It's interesting that you think that England has has like the worst roster. I think they have by far the second best roster behind France. By far the second best roster.
I think that I think I would take Spain's roster over most of England's roster, with the exception of Kane and Bellingham. I think Argentina has a worse squad than England, but has the greatest player of all time.
Sure. That does help you a little
in
bit.
replacement of Jude Bellingham and Harry Kane, which like,
Right.
And they are also the defending world champions. So there's just kind
Yeah.
of like England is up against the defending world champions with the opportunity to play in a World Cup final. Like,
Yeah.
how ready are you to play against the GOAT and the reigning world champions?
Yeah.
So
totally.
we'll see. I don't know.
Well, let's speak on the reigning world champions who have had perhaps the most unconvincing run to a semifinal I've ever seen in my life. Argentina beat Switzerland 3-1 in regular time in the final quarterfinal of this tournament. Extra time? Extra time. Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And I thought Argentina were really bad in this game again.
They
after
were
being bad against Cape Verde and after being bad against Egypt. Switzerland score to equalize this game, and it really feels like Switzerland have the upper hand in this game. And then about 2 minutes after the goal, Embolo is given a second yellow for simulation and is sent off. And so Switzerland have to play the rest of regular time and all of extra time at 10 men. And for like a half an hour, no, for like 45 minutes of gameplay,
Yep.
Argentina cannot break down and score against 10 men Switzerland. And you're just looking at this team like, what are you doing? You like Messi, all these like they have all these people and they cannot score against 10 men Switzerland for the longest time. And it is just not a team that gives me any sort of confidence that they are going to be a serious threat when they play, with all due respect to Switzerland, a serious team, which, by the way, they have not played a serious team
No,
this
not one.
entire World Cup yet. Not one. And we can talk about like the Embolo incident and the weird VAR controversy there too, of because every game has to have one. But man, like I think Argentina are going to get their doors blown off by England.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Argentina only won through what was an amazing moment of individual brilliance by Julian Alvarez, who scored his first goal of this World Cup from like around 20 yards out, curled it, right into the upper 90. It was a beautiful goal. And then the last one was kind of just, scored on the break when Switzerland were pressing late. But that was like all they created was just, a lucky shot from outside the box. It was beautiful, but Argentina basically created nothing while having a man advantage. And I don't know, like I look at this team, I look at the controversies that have surrounded them in the last 4 years since they won the World Cup. Like there was a lot of goodwill toward them for Messi to win a World Cup in 2022. And since then, they've been surrounded by controversies. They've been surrounded by VAR controversies, as you alluded to earlier with the Egypt situation. I think that their players do not seem like, as a whole, a lot of them don't seem like particularly nice people. Maybe a nice way to put that. And I don't root for any of them, to be quite frank. I think that Messi carries a lot of goodwill from the general populace at large, and I think the rest of the team has completely thrown all of that out the door. And I do think Argentina is the most hated team left in this tournament. Like when we get to the final, if the final ends up being a France-Argentina rematch, I will root for France, which if you know me, is almost unthinkable to root for France in a
Yeah.
World Cup final. And yet I 100% would, because Argentina has become the villains of this tournament, down to a man, with the exception of Messi.
Only in the WWE can someone go from hero to villain so quickly in a narrative.
Yeah,
Like
it's
Argentina
astonishing.
Argentina's run to giving to Messi obtaining his first World Cup trophy in 2022 was a run of like almost universal goodwill and joy and happiness for this, crowning achievement and this player's legacy. And now, 4 years later, when Messi is arguably playing better now than he was playing in 2022, Argentina are universally like reviled by the world and
Mm-hmm.
like are often being accused of, getting significant refereeing bias. And that's interesting. Um, I don't have a whole lot to say about this game. Like I said, I thought Argentina were not convincing or good. The
Super
Embolo
bland.
thing I've come around to. Basically, like he dove and on the field, the referee gave the Argentinian player a yellow card, and then VAR wanted him to look at the yellow card on replay, which I did not
Right.
know that VAR that they could intervene on yellow cards. I did not know that was a thing. And um, then they look at it and they take the yellow card away from the Argentinian player and give it to Embolo as for a dive, and that ends up being his second yellow, so he's sent off. Like I said, 2 minutes after the Swiss equalizer. Was it a yellow card? Yes. It was a dive,
Yeah.
and he shouldn't have done it. And but like I think again the right decision was reached, but was did the application of VAR make sense at all? No, because if they had just if the referee had just given a foul to Paredes and not a yellow card, no, there would have been no standing for VAR to even look at this incident. And instead they
Right.
look at it, and not only do they take the yellow off of Paredes, they add it to Embolo. And again, I'm just not sure if I want VAR intervening in this situation. Like I mentioned on the last podcast, like I think there's a significant need to scale down the use of VAR. And like, should it be intervening in first to look at overturning a first yellow card for a player? Is that what we want?
So I think what I would say, so here's the interesting nuance of this particular situation. This exact same thing happened in Team USA's opener against Paraguay, if you remember back to when Tim Ream supposedly fouled Miguel Almiron. Tim Ream got a yellow card. The referee was told by VAR that actually Tim Ream didn't touch Almiron and Almiron had flopped. So the referee went back, saw that was the case, and rescinded the yellow card for Tim and gave it to Almiron. Now, this is a new use case of VAR that has happened for the first time at this tournament, that it's technically for cases of mistaken identity. So normally what that would mean would be if, a bit of a fracas happens, a couple players get into an argument with a player from another team. One player actually does something that the referee, sees as a foul deserving of a yellow card, a push or whatever. But then the referee gives the yellow card to the wrong player. VAR is, in this instance, allowed to intervene and say, hey, you actually gave this yellow card to the wrong player. It should be player X, not player Y. In that first opener, the referee was told by VAR, you gave a yellow card, but actually the guy didn't touch the ball. And technically, by the letter of how this kind of situation is written, VAR is actually not supposed to intervene in these cases of diving. But it was so well received in that game, because obviously we do want to cut down on diving, that I think FIFA has decided that mistaken identity should also apply to this situation, which is how VAR intervened here. I think we just have to make up our mind on if we want diving to be, cut back on or not with review, or if we don't care. I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. I actually have no problem with this being given as a red card, because Embolo does try to aggravate this so Paredes gets a yellow card, and it was ridiculous. And, if you're on a yellow card, don't flop. Ultimately, it is harsh, but also you ruined your country's chance of going to the semifinal. It is on you.
It is entirely on Embolo. I've come around on this one. This was a good use of VAR. But
your point stands, though, ultimately.
Yeah. I do. Yeah. Again, it's something that is new and experimental, and people are still getting used to, and people aren't used to seeing VAR intervene in this matter. I do think, like I said, there needs to be a broader kind of intervention on how we use VAR for future tournaments and future World Cups. But in this instance, I do think that some core truths are diving is bad, and if you're already on a yellow card, you shouldn't blatantly dive.
Right.
That's simple.
I mean, it's just fair. Yeah.
John, we don't really want to talk a lot about the other two quarterfinals, because frankly, the games weren't that good.
No.
France beat Morocco. Spain beat Belgium. Cool.
France, Morocco, yawn fest. This was terrible. I did not care about this game, and I really don't think Morocco did either, which is really tough. But literally I genuinely mean that, though. It was the most lifeless performance. The most interesting thing Morocco did during this game was walk out of halftime 5 minutes late, and just kept the French players waiting on the field for a billion years, it felt like, while they were doing this tough entrance walk out for the second half, and then showed up and proceeded to do absolutely nothing for the entire rest of the game.
Don't you have to get onto the field on time?
Yes. You can get fined.
Shouldn't the referee have given every single Moroccan player a yellow card upon them entering the pitch 5 minutes late?
I would have
liked to have seen that. I think that if your entire team walks out late, every single person on your team should get a yellow card.
This is an application of VAR that I would love. Not even VAR, just refereeing. Just get out there. It was ridiculous. Yeah, Morocco was a disgrace.
France continued to just kind of cruise control their way through this tournament. I still don't even think they've hit their top gear, and they've just been flying past these teams. Spain beat Belgium. Patron saint of John Nekrasov, Mikel Merino, scored his second late game winner in a row after dispatching Cristiano Ronaldo in Portugal. He dispatched Belgium, and he's having really the tournament of his life.
Yeah, I mean he scored in Euro 24 when Spain ultimately won the tournament, he came on and scored the winner against Germany late to send Spain into the semifinals. He scored, a good amount of clutch goals for Arsenal in his time. But he has come in as a super sub. I think the great sin of this Spanish team is that they really just kind of, with Yamal coming back from injury, Nico Williams basically being out, and Alvaro Morata not in this team anymore, they lack a cutting edge a little bit. The
Mm.
rest of their team to me is like almost flawless, but their ability to score goals is a little bit questionable at times. And Mikel Merino just shows up. They sub him on now after the 80th minute, and he just twice in a row now has scored a goal within 2 minutes of coming on, and that's just it's a lot of fun. And I think Spain is going to need that and more if they have a chance of beating France in the next round, because that is the juicy semifinal that we have lined up for us.
If the man who dispatches Kylian Mbappe and Michael Olise and Ousmane Dembele in the semifinal is Mikel Merino, I'm kind of going to freak out.
Are you going to admit that he may be the greatest player of our generation if that happens?
I would not say that. No, I would say that
But
he
what about
might
the
be the
most
best
clutch player?
of the entire generation.
Yeah.
Certainly in the World Cup, that I think there'd be a case for that. I mean, let's get to it, John. So we have the first semifinal is on Tuesday afternoon, 3:00 Eastern
Yes, it is.
time, France and Spain. I think that many people kind of view this as the final, myself included. I think that either one of these two teams would be favored against either team from the
Yes,
other
that's just
semifinal.
true. That's just true.
But I do think that Spain are significant underdogs coming against this France juggernaut. And how do you kind of see this game going?
I think this game it fascinates me for a lot of reasons. One of which is that France and Spain played each other in Euro 2024. I think it was in the semifinals.
And Spain
Spain
won.
won that game 2-1, and there were a few key differences in this France team versus that previous one. One is that Randall Colomani, who's not very good, is out of this team, and N'Golo Kante is out of that team as well. Instead, in come Michael Olise, who is an absolute game changer.
Yeah.
And France is doing this weird system where they basically play, two midfielders and four forwards. They are really trying to take games to teams. We've talked about them a lot throughout this tournament just because what they're doing it feels very unique and very new, and we've never really seen a team offensively cruise through the World Cup like this. France, when they won the World Cup in 2018, were not like this. They were very defensively solid. Argentina winning the World Cup in 2022 ground through games a lot. This France team feels like they are like in kind of in Yukon March Madness fashion, just kind of just cruising through this tournament, cruising through the opposition that they've faced. And the question is like, you know, are they just that much better than everyone else, or are there any weak spots in their armor that a team can exploit? And I do think Spain. I'm curious what you think. I think Spain do lack a cutting edge, like I said, but I think Spain's defense is phenomenal, and I think Spain's midfield is close to second to none at this World Cup. And the question to me is, can Spain get enough of the ball that France ends up getting frustrated and ends up extending the game a little bit and giving Yamal a couple moments of individual brilliance to shine? That to me is what this game is. If Spain cannot get the ball, I think that if France can win that midfield battle, I think that Spain basically has no chance.
I'm not sure if I completely see it the same way as you, honestly, John, because I've seen Spain have a lot of the ball and frankly do very little with it. Like
Totally.
they've picked
No, I
a
agree.
few key moments where they have, but I think Spain could have a lot of this ball, a lot of the ball in this game, and still get beaten pretty comprehensively on the counter. Like France seem to be willing to do it either way. Like they'll beat you with the ball or they'll beat you without the ball. Spain are very, very dependent on having a lot of possession. And unless Lamine Yamal plays better than he has played so far in this World Cup, Spain have been fairly toothless, I think, with the ball except for a few key moments at the end of games where they've kind of like delivered that final punch, like late, like in stoppage time against Portugal, very, very late against Belgium. Was it stoppage time against Belgium as well? Was it? I can't remember if it was after 90 or
Close.
not,
No,
but it
it
was
was
late.
in the 80s, but yeah, it was close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was late. So, on paper, you know, Spain have a much better midfield. That's just true.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, in part because France only have two people in the midfield anyway. But I think in reality, France are, I think, much more versatile and
Mm-hmm.
are willing to play and to win in different styles. And so to me, it's not a matter of France getting frustrated because I think France will find a way regardless. The question is, will Spain get frustrated if they either don't have the ball a lot or if they do have the ball but aren't able to just be clinical with it. We've seen teams in the Premier League like play against Arsenal or Manchester City, and just we've seen those top teams just struggle, just pass the ball around from the center back to center back, and then from midfielder back to center back, just trying to find an opening, and that opening never comes. France can do that to Spain, and I think Spain are gonna have to really unlock a new door in terms of their ability to break down a team and find that final pass, that final thing, that clinical, the final execution that leads to a goal, rather than just empty possession, pass, 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 cross, 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 cross. Nothing's really happening.
Right. I think the distinction to me is like Spain does not win this game on the counter. So
Nope.
if France ends up controlling this game, then I do think this is a guaranteed loss for Spain, I guess is what my point is. I think
Yeah.
Spain's only path to winning this game is by genuinely suffocating the way that France tries to get the ball upfield. Because to this point, France have not really been on the back foot in any game. And I think one of the symptoms of the way this World Cup has panned out with an expanded tournament is that you don't necessarily play like Argentina. Obviously, I think has had the easiest run of any of the semifinalists, but France has played teams that are very rugged. If they had played a full strength Norway, maybe things would be different.
Yeah.
The only game that France has struggled in at all was the first half of the game against Senegal in the opening game of the tournament, and it was because Senegal packed the midfield and made it difficult for them to progress the ball. I think that that's the recipe for Spain to similarly challenge France. And I think I agree with you that France just has too much quality for that to work. But I think that I see a path there where the Spanish team can cause problems if they can get someone to score. Like if Spain gets a goal and then dominates the ball afterward, I think that can create a scenario where France is forced to play out of itself a little bit. And the question is like, is Mbappe and Dembele and Elise going to do the defensive work that they need to slow Spain down? So again, I agree with you, but I do think that like this is not the Spanish team are proven winners. And I don't think it's not a foregone conclusion to me by any means.
It's interesting to hear you say that like you haven't seen France get pushed in this way that you think Spain will, because like Morocco did have more possession and more passes than France did in that quarterfinal, and France still rendered them completely toothless. So when I mean,
Right.
like, I don't like France has not been ball dominant every single game of this series, and in fact, we've seen other teams have more of the ball, and France not only beat them, but like made them look irrelevant, even though they had more passes and more possession. So
Right.
they can do that to Spain too. Obviously, Spain is better than Morocco, but we'll see. On the other side of this, John, we have England and Argentina.
Yes, we do.
I think England's going to win this game. I just do. But I do think that England have a problem. So Thomas Tuchel said that he was disappointed in the tactics and quality of the England team. And I would just like to say, Thomas Tuchel, I think that you're the problem. And here's why. I'm dead serious.
Yeah. Okay.
Thomas Tuchel has no idea who to play at the wings, offensively and defensively. With Jarrell Kwanzaa, he's going to be serving the second game of a 2-match suspension. He was their right back. He moved Konsa, who's a center back, to right back and played Nico O'Reilly at left back. Substituted both of them off for Judd Spence and Reece James. And on the attacking wings, Noni Madueke has been awful,
Dreadful. Yes, he has.
terrible. And then on the other side, he started Anthony Gordon, who has been fine. But again,
I feel like he's
like
been pretty good, to be fair.
he's been okay. Yeah, he's been good. But like Saka is sitting there on the bench, and Rashford is sitting there on the bench, and Eze is sitting there on the bench. And I just Thomas Tuchel has no idea what to do in those positions. He has changed them basically every single game, and we're here in the business end now. Like you've had 7 or 8 games to figure this out, and you just haven't figured it out. I think that England are weak on the wings, both offensively and defensively, compared to the opposition that they're going to come up against in the rest of this tournament. And I think it's actually a personnel issue.
Here's my take. I definitely hear you. I think that Gordon has like 3 assists in the last 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that Gordon has impressed me. I have not been impressed by Gordon at the club level in a long time. We're on record about this. I would like to see Rashford, get on the field more, but Gordon has impressed me. The issue with Bukayo Saka is the best right winger that England has. Period. End of story. The issue is that Saka has basically not been fit in a year, and even a half fit Saka, I think is better than any option that England has or left at home. I really do believe that. I'm not just an Arsenal homer. Like, I think it's just true. When you
Yeah.
see how dynamic he is, how much trouble he gave Norway, like he's an unbelievable player. And if he did not, have to play like 8 million minutes by the age of 24 or however old he is,
Uh-huh.
I think that he would be much higher in the world winger rankings currently than he is right now, just given the fitness issues he's had. That being said, he just, he has been struggling to actually get on the field. I think that's why Madueke has been playing. I think that Tuchel is basically like saving Saka's legs for the end of games and just like letting Madueke run around for the first half of these games, which I really understand, but I think Saka needs to be fit for this next game. And I think, Rice came off at halftime because, he's had that illness issue and also was on a yellow card. Rice will now not be suspended, if he gets a yellow card in this round. And so I think that you're 100% right on the fullback issue. Reece James is made of glass. He's a talented footballer, but also was injured, in training in this tournament. He's 100% the starting right back if he's fit in the next game, but it's just always a question with Reece James. So I agree. Messi is going to torment whichever fullback he ends up facing, and
Yeah,
I
most
fear for
likely
that.
Nico O'Reilly. He will get cooked.
Nico O'Reilly is a good player with the ball and dreadful defensively.
Yeah.
That's basically how I feel.
So I mean, yeah, I've seen it's so interesting compared to the rest of these teams where there are a few positions on this England squad that have been a revolving door this entire tournament.
Right.
And you can't say that for any of the other 3 teams. Like
Nope.
France have swapped one position every game. Barcola and Doué have rotated.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Or and that's literally
or
it.
Kone, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Kone and Tchouaméni. But England have so much more variability in what their lineup's going to be, and I think that's a weakness. And I think Tuchel needs to figure that out before I would believe that England are going to go all the way. That said, I think England are going to beat Argentina. This is the first good team that Argentina has faced, and they barely beat. Like I said, extra time against Cape Verde, left it super late against Egypt, extra time against Switzerland. They're not at the level. They're just not at the level
I agree.
of a legitimate semifinalist or finalist.
I agree. And I think England are playing with a fire that like is legit this time. I think Tuchel has told them that they've been failures for the last 4 tournaments and they need to get it together. And I think they're responding. I think they're super annoyed that he's saying it, but they all know he's right. And I think that this is a different team. I still don't think, if I'm being like having my most objective hat on, England will be the worst team in the final, no matter who they play, if they make it that far.
Mm-hmm.
But also, the World Cup is crazy. And crazy things sometimes happen. And then with that, I think we need to talk about our predictions.
I just find it so interesting that, England are going to make their first World Cup final in 60 years, John, is it? It's been a long time.
That's right. Yep.
And they finally learned the lesson, which is that all it takes for England to be great is for them to put a German at the helm of the team.
That's exactly right. Get Roy Hodgson out of here. Get Gareth Southgate in here. The Germans know how to win, and it is funny to me that Thomas Tuchel is not the manager of Germany, because I feel like maybe Germany would have gone much further in this tournament if he'd been at the helm over there. But as it is,
We'll
the
talk
English
about
get him.
we'll talk about the German news afterward, because it looks like Klopp is a done deal there.
Yeah, I think it's a done deal, which is exciting.
Yeah. So John, like I said, France are going to win semifinal number 1, and then on Wednesday, England are going to win semifinal number 2, which sets us up for just an absolutely tasty World Cup final that you and I will be watching together here in person at my house on Sunday afternoon at 3 p.m. And France are going to beat England 3-1 in regular time. And I think that the France, if you think Argentina are going to give the English fullbacks a hard time, if you think Messi is going to give Nico Relli a hard time, just wait till they see France. Like France, I think they just offer too much. The arsenal, pun intended, is just too big. It's too big. There are too many just high-powered players in there, and frankly, I don't think any country in the world could stop them. I think Argentina will lose the third place game to Spain, like by a lot. I wrote down 8-0 as a joke, but like it's going to be a lot. I actually would be curious. Like, I think Messi just would sit out the third place game. I don't think he would.
There's no way.
Why would he? There's no reason for him to. He doesn't care.
Guess, maybe
about the third place
probably
game.
True. Yeah.
And
so funny.
So I think that France win their second World Cup in 3 tournaments, and I think Kylian Mbappe, he might win the Ballon d'Or this year.
I think if France win the World Cup, probably. I think that's probably true. My prediction, because sometimes things don't go the way we think. Some things don't always go the way of the favorites, especially in the World Cup. France is obviously the best team in this tournament, hands down. But the best team in the tournament doesn't always win. And so because of that, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that this game is going to be tied 1-1 at the end of extra time, or at the end of regular time. It's going to go to extra time. England is going to win off of a, utterly dramatic Harry Kane header on a corner from a Declan Rice set piece, and wins the World Cup 2-1. It's going to be dramatic. There's going to be VAR controversy, and there will be a red card late in the game. Argentina will lose the third place game to Spain 13-4 after Lisandro Martinez and Christian Romero both receive red cards in a fight in the first 5 minutes of gameplay. Messi will score all 4 goals, but it will not be enough to rebalance the game.
I like it. I like what you're doing. If I was going to give you a couple notes, just some things to think about.
I'm pondering. Thing number one, I'm hearing.
Thing number one, you're saying that France only are limited to 1 goal.
I think that's the only way England wins.
But I'm saying that would be like the greatest defensive masterclass in the history of the World Cup to limit France.
Paraguay did it. Paraguay did it.
Not ethically.
All I'm saying, that's why I have the red card in there.
Are you saying
this is not going to be an ethical game? Yeah.
And then secondly, you're expecting Declan Rice to go for 120 minutes, which would just be, I think, shocking to me at this state in his
England
health.
In the final. He will literally, Declan Rice will break his back for the flying colors of England, and
that is true.
I think if they get to this moment, he will last all the way. Okay. I do firmly believe that.
If this happens, John, you and I will be sitting next to each other wearing opposing jerseys, soaking in this final.
And it'll be beautiful.
And
what could be better
time.
than exporting the Crunching Tackles derby into the international stage in just the biggest way possible?
Yeah, it's going to be great. And I can't wait for it. Anything else for the people, John, before we get out of here?
No, we're just so thankful to everyone who's been listening to us throughout this World Cup, anyone who's new listeners, who's joining us from word of mouth or social media or whatever. It's been really fun getting to share this tournament with you guys, and in whatever way that you're joining the bandwagon. And we hope that as we continue to cover both soccer and all the sports, and also the joys of Jannik Sinner beating Alexander Zverev in the Wimbledon final today, which we'll get to at some point down the road because it's important to us. But I just wanted to shout that out because that's a win for the pod. Thanks for being here.
We got scarily close to a back-to-back Zverev slam that would have
Too
really
close.
harmed me emotionally.
I was literally thinking about, if that happened, just not mentioning it on the pod at all. Just
I would have
acting like it never
seriously,
happened.
I would have been seriously emotionally harmed by that. Just quickly, guys. So this week, it's like I mentioned, it's Tuesday at 3:00 Eastern, semifinal 1, Wednesday, 3:00 Eastern, semifinal 2, and then Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern, the big finale. And we hope that you all are locked into it, and then come back, of course, because we will have a recap pod on the World Cup,
Yes, we will.
and we're gonna have a ton of stories to talk about inside and outside of this
3-hour
tournament
pod.
as we could be. I mean, this has just been such an amazing time for the podcast and for the World Cup has truly, like, I think we've been on this hype train for more than 2 years now, expecting this tournament, and I'm just thrilled with how it has lived up to just everything that we've wanted it to, and I can't wait to continue to break it all down with you, John. So I think that's it. And until next time, we hope that you all continue to be well and be safe, and we'll talk to you next time about the World Cup final.
All right. Cheers, guys.